Welcome to Stepdad Success, turning the tide on the way stepdads are seen and show up in the world. We're a new breed of leaders raising leaders. Blood or no blood, we raise them as our own. We're connected, loving, and committed to leading them into the future. If you asked a normal dad, he'd say we're doing the impossible. He'd say, but they're not yours. How do you do it? Yet every day, stepdads around the world are forging the way. That's what we call Stepdad Success. We're leaders raising leaders. And these are our stories.
Hello there, this is James Klobassa from Stepdad Success, and today we've got another interview, and today we're moving to the UK. A lot of people we've been talking to have been based in the States and Australia, but today it's the UK, and we've got Exton Male on the line. He has actually an Amazon business, which I was quite interested in, me coming from an online background, but runs an Amazon business, sells various products online, and is quite successful in that, which is fantastic. He also, of course, is a dad and a stepdad. So we'll find out a little bit more from Exton. Exton, are you there, mate?
I am indeed, James.
Awesome, mate. Great, mate. Great. Thanks very much for coming on today, and welcome. As we'll dive into the conversation. But first of all, I might just get you to give us a little bit of background on yourself. Just, if you can give us a little bit of insight into a little bit of backstory.
Okay, well, on the family side, business side, on me, what would be...
Start wherever you like, mate, and we'll see where it ends up. But, maybe just yourself and head towards the family.
Perfect. Okay, well, try and keep this succinct. So I am a 47-year-old father of four. I have been working in the financial markets, specifically financial derivatives, since leaving university. That all changed last year, where I started my Amazon business whilst I was still working in the markets. That went really well, and got to a stage where I was earning as much as I was in my job. So I took the plunge at the end of last year, gave in my notice, bit of a leap of faith, and my last official paycheck was in January this year. So I'm fully self-employed now, working with my brother-in-law and my wife up in my garage. So I have a commute now of about 38 steps to my desk, rather than an hour, battling through the hordes of people at the London stations every morning. So my life has changed massively for the better over the last 6 months. I'd really got bored with the amount of time I was spending out of the house. During very busy times in my career, I was leaving the house at 5 a.m, getting back at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the evening. So I wouldn't see the wife or kids for periods of large swathes of the week. So so it's all good. Going back to the family. So my first wife, I've been married twice. So my first wife I met at school. We were friends at school. Got together romantically, I suppose, when we were 17, and got married when we were 28. Had two kids, a son and a daughter, who are now 17 and 15. And unfortunately, in 2011, she died. Julianne died. She had she got something called sepsis, which is a blood infection, and it was very sudden. One day to the next. It happened over a period of one day. So that was a big shock to the whole family.
I bet.
A massive tragedy, basically. So my job then was a big challenge to try and first of all keep the kids' lives on track as much as I possibly could, and keep my life on track. And I'll come back to that later. And then in 2012, I was at a family wedding and came across a young lady called Josie, who all of my family had known for years. I'd never actually met her. So that was quite interesting. We chatted, and we had a real sort of connection, and chatted, as friends for the whole wedding weekend. Nothing romantic happened in anyway. And excuse me. And then about a month later, I kept thinking about her, and I just thought, right, sod it, I'll give her a call and see what happens.
Yeah.
So
why not?
Well, I didn't even give her a call. I was too nervous. You know, can you imagine? I hadn't dated anyone since I was, you know, since my first wife. She's
sure.
You know, I asked her out for a date, and you know, I was sorted for the next 25 years. So I was a novice. So that went really well. We had a long volley of emails over about 6 weeks before we finally got to meet up. There was a 200-mile gap between us, so that was a bit of a challenge. So anyway, that went really well. She had a daughter from a previous relationship who was 6 at the time. So that is my route into being a stepdad, which is why I'm on this call, I suppose. And after about a year, we decided, you know, we didn't want to live apart, and Josie and Summer decided to relocate and join myself, Oscar and Abby as one family. So that was just over 4 years ago. And then me and Josie got married 3 years ago, sorry. And we decided at that age, you know, I was 44, 45, Josie was 42, 43. We thought, why don't we just try for a baby, see what happens? If nothing happens, you know, we're blessed to have 3 awesome children. And if something does happen, beautiful, you know, it's meant to be. So we tried, and luckily, straight away, Josie got pregnant. So we now have little baby Dexter, who was 2 years old last week. So yeah, to make a very symmetrical 4 kids, 2 sons and 2 daughters. So
yeah, wow.
It's been a, you know, after the tragedy of Julian dying, it's been, you know, we've had some very good times after the darkness.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yes, it's a very, very busy life now, but it's a very enjoyable life.
I was going to say,
have a big family.
4 kids in the house, that'll keep anyone busy. Tell me,
Exactly.
Exton, like, just going back a little bit, what was your upbringing like? Like, what's your background and, you know, your parents and that sort of thing?
Okay, so I come from a very... Sorry, James, carry on.
No, you're right. You go, mate.
So I come from a very medical background. Most of my family are doctors, nurses. So because of that, my mum always said my dad was married to the National Health Service, which is the health service in the UK. So he dedicated himself massively towards the cause. So he was out of the door. Well, I never really saw him at home. He was either you know, doing operations on patients or seeing them before the operation or seeing them after the operation. He really did sort of go the extra mile compared to a lot of his colleagues. So that was him. My mum was a nurse in her early career and then became a midwife. So she had to do lots of elongated shifts, and a lot of the time she did night shifts. So they both worked throughout my childhood, and that was mainly to fund both myself and my elder sister's private school education. So my parents decided that the free school was not what they wanted for us. So, you know, they made sacrifices and sent us to this fee-paying school. So massively grateful for that. So because my dad was out of the house more than my mum was the main, my mum was like my mum and my dad. She was the carer
Sure.
and also the disciplinarian, so sort of real matriarchal figure. So, you know, my dad would fund the whole operation mainly because he earned more. But, you know, my mum, you know, provided all the, you know, all the love and, you know, kept the house together. And so, yeah, she really dominated the family. And, you know, I suppose she still kept that position with her and my dad. You know, she sort of runs their life. So, yeah, it was a very, very happy upbringing. You know, I know a lot of families go through, you know, divorce of their parents. Luckily, I haven't had that. They were, you know, we had lots of, I remember lots of arguments in the house mainly based around money, which a lot of it was the fact that my mum, I think, didn't resent, but she felt that my dad should put a bit more effort into our family rather than into you know, his patients. I think I've regularly heard her say charity begins at home. So
it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because that is kind of the standard. And on this podcast, we talk a little bit about living the warrior's way and those concepts. So the concept of people being essentially sedated in the past, living through that. Okay, I've got to just go to work all day and make the money and come home and expect everything kind of rosy. It's kind of the way that our parents were brought up, and they've obviously instilled that into us to some extent, and that's why I guess the podcast is a little bit about breaking free of that kind of old past habits as well.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Fully agree with that. I mean, that's what my dad did, and then I replicated that, didn't I? So throughout my years in the finance, I just swapped the health service for banks and hedge funds, and I did exactly the same thing until I sort of woke up to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you wake up to that, or was it some sort of outside force that kind of had you wake up?
I did wake up to that. And I think Julianne's death was a big thing that made me look back and think, I've missed out on a lot of my kids growing up because I've only been there, from Sunday night when I'd give them a kiss goodnight to I wouldn't see them again sometimes till Saturday morning. So and then I just thought, Julianne died, very quickly, and suddenly the same could happen to any of us. So I just need to, make a change to my life. Yeah, so I think I woke up to it, to answer your question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we are talking about stepkids on the podcast, but essentially it all is under parenting. And I kind of just wanted to circle back around to the death of your first wife and just ask how you dealt with that and how you dealt with the kids in that, because I mean that could happen to one of us, even as step parents. So, just maybe if you could talk a little bit about that, I think that would be really valuable.
Okay, so from the minute that she died, I was obviously overcome with grief, and but even though I was so overcome, I just knew that I had one opportunity to make sure I did the right thing for the kids. And obviously I've never been through this before. So I was desperate to, I was asking the doctors, and there was a grief counsellor there at the hospital with us. And I just said, look, you must tell me how I deal with the kids. What do I do? Just from minute one when I get home and open the door. I don't want to deliver things in a bad way. And they were very, very good to me. They took me to one side and said, look, you've got to just make it totally clear what's happened, and don't say things like, mummy's passed away or things like that. You have to say, you have to give them no chance of thinking that, things can get better. So sure. I came home, I just took them upstairs and said to them, look, mummy's dead and you'll never see her again.
Wow. That's something to deal with, especially happening quickly. I've actually got a friend that a similar thing happened to him, and he lost his wife with two very young kids. They just had a kid. She was only a few months old, and tough times. I can't even imagine.
So I mean, that was very good advice from them, because the pain that we all felt then was just unbelievable, and and then it's just growth from there. And they also said to me, funnily enough, don't be surprised if the kids are, 1 minute they're crying their hearts out, and the next minute, they say something totally normal. So we'd had about 2 or 3 hours of solid, crying our hearts out, and then my daughter said to me, Daddy, can I still go around to Ellis for a sleepover tomorrow night?
Yeah, wow.
And that's just how kids work.
Yeah, exactly.
And the kids, if anyone goes through grief and they've got kids and similar age to mine, they'll probably find that the kids were they were what got me through it all, because they constantly, I was caring for them, so it helped take some of the edge off my grief. We all grieved very hard together, But then we'd have moments of fun because they're kids and they've got to have fun, right? You know, you can't.
Yeah.
They grieve much better than we do. So I use that to try to grieve how they grieve. So, you know, when I saw them crying, you know, I had a massive cry. I wasn't scared of crying in front of them. Encouraged it. I encouraged my son to cry. And then when they had fun, I would have fun. And we'd go out for dinner.
Wow.
And we'd play games, and, you know.
Wow.
So, yeah, I just dedicate myself to them to try and get them through it, and that helped me get through it.
Yeah, wow, that's a lesson right there. Just to, you know, take a leaf out of their book and join them, because kids do know how to have fun. It's kind of naturally inbuilt, and that you know, said on some previous podcasts that, you know, we lose that ability just to snap into fun, and as we get older, and you know, it's a great reminder. Not exactly the way we want to be reminded, but you know, it's take my hat off to you for joining them in, you know, just being able to deal with it together, really.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears from there a little bit. But so how did you know, you told us a little bit about meeting your wife, your current wife. Yeah. What about her? I'm guessing it's daughter Summer.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So how did that go in the first meeting? What, you know, did you, you know, was it awkward? Was it, you know, these are interesting conversations because it's an interesting, you know, times when we have to go through that first meeting. Yes, indeed. So I'm very lucky. Summer's you know, she's a great girl, and I'd already, all my cousins and aunts and uncles had already told me, you know, what a lovely girl she was. So I was not nervous in any way at all. So after we'd had these, you know, 6 weeks of emails, I'd finally turned up. I got the train up to Manchester, and I was going to take her out to dinner. So my cousins live in Manchester, so the plan was for me to, they were going to pick me up from Manchester Station and take me back to theirs. I was going to get ready, and then I'd pick Josie up in the evening, we'd go out for dinner. So I got there, I got in the car, and they said, "Oh, sorry, Exton, change of plan. We've been asked to babysit for Summer tonight, so we thought we'd kill two birds with one stone, and we'll go around to Josie's now, and we'll pick up Summer." So I was absolutely flapping, you know, because I thought I was going to see her till the evening. I had, you know, like a shocking outfit on. I hadn't shaved, probably smelt. So I thought I'll spruce myself up later. But anyway, that didn't happen. So that was a bit of a baptism of fire. My cousins didn't seem to care because it was just made their lives easier and they didn't care about my pain. So, we went into the house. So this is the first time I met Summer. So because at the very early stages, we didn't want, before we knew it was going to be, you know, the real thing, we didn't want to, you know, bother really Oscar and Abby or Summer about the sort of romantic side in case there's any negative reaction. So I was just introduced as cousin Exton, you know, because I came round with my cousins, and it was just promoted that, you know, there was an evening that me and Josie were going to be part of. It wasn't going to be romantic. So Summer was just happy-go-lucky. She's dead affectionate. She came and gave me a massive hug, which was nice. Yeah. So and then we proceeded to drive back to my cousin's house with my cousin and her husband in the front of the car, and me and Summer in the back. So me thinking, because I'd already had a feeling that me and Joseph was going to be, you know, a match made in heaven. So I was sat there in the back chatting away to this really chatty, friendly, intelligent 6-year-old, thinking, oh my God, you know, you haven't got a clue, but you could be my stepdaughter. You know, I'm going to be a massive part in your life, and I can't wait. You know, I was just sort of taking a little snapshot into the future. So that was quite funny. And, that's interesting. I was going to say, you almost got to know her more than what her mum knew you in that car ride, probably.
Indeed, yeah. Well, me and Josie did, you know, the stories are from the wedding. Me and Josie just sat together and chatted non-stop for about 12 hours. So we did know each other quite well. But yeah, it was great to to have that opportunity with Summer. It's something we look back on now and have a real laugh about.
And how old was Summer then?
She was 6 then.
6. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I met my 2 boys when they were 18 months and 3 years, and a little bit older, a little bit wiser at 6 years old too.
Yeah, it could have been a lot trickier than it was because you could get some kickback. In one sense, I'm lucky because she doesn't see her biological father very much.
Right.
And there's a big. He left the home when she was 18 months old, so it's always, as far as she's known, it's always been her and Josie sort of against the world. So it wasn't like I was muscling in on her dad. So there was a void there, and I think Summer sort of was encouraging of Josie to find a new bloke, basically. So,
right.
But Josie was very, very, very much in the case of she because of Summer, she didn't want to make any compromises with her next relationship. So she ended up becoming quite fussy, and that led to Summer. Well, she knew she wanted to be with someone, but she didn't want to make the compromise.
Yeah, sure. That's funny. Tell me, just like, how was Josie with you and Summer, and like, what was that dynamic like at the start? Was it always kind of rosy, or was it a little bit tension? Was there tension there at any stage, or?
Very lucky to say, always rosy. I mean, I can't, looking back, I can't remember any signs of tension or problems. I was always, greeted with a massive hug at the door, non-stop chatting, very affectionate. As time went on, when Josie came out to see me in London, she'd bring Summer down with her. So yeah, very lucky, James, really.
That's
great.
It
couldn't have been smoother on the step front.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me, does Summer have any connection with a father now? Is he in the picture? Is there any sort of dynamic there that you guys have to work through, or is he kind of out of the picture? What happens nowadays?
He's in the picture. He lives in the south, so it was more problematic getting Summer to him when Josie was up in Manchester. So it's a lot easier now. We've got a meeting point which is about an hour away from both of us. So it's very civil. She goes down there maybe once every 2 months, once every 3 months. She has a lovely time down there by all accounts. But yeah, it's a bit weird because it's like her dad isn't too bothered because, we'll come back we'll pick her up from a weekend and she'll say, oh yeah, Daddy had to go to work, all day Saturday and part of Sunday. And me and Josie just, we're gobsmacked, Sometimes I haven't seen her for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, sure.
And it's just alien to us,
Yeah.
It's alien that he doesn't want to see her that often, and it's alien that when he does see her, he doesn't see her. And she's his other half is lovely, and she absolutely adores him, and she's the one who contacts us to say, please, can we rearrange the next visit? So
right. Wow.
Selfishly, I suppose, if I'm being honest, I'm glad that the situation is like that because he's created this void for me to fill, which I love. And then I think a year after we'd all been living together, Summer off her own back asked me and Josie if it was all right if she called me Daddy. So that was absolute music to my ears because
wow.
I didn't want her to feel, because when she was at school it was confusing because she was meant to calling me, not calling me Dad, she called me Exton. It was just nice, and it felt strange for a very short period of time, couple of weeks maybe. And now it's, it couldn't be more natural. I treat her totally like one of my own. I don't see any difference. So, that's been lovely. That's been lovely.
Well,
so, to answer your question, it's he hasn't got a major part in her life, and I can only really see that being diluted as she gets older. She gets all, as far as I've been told, you'll know a lot more than me. As the stepkids get older, they have they have more interests that dominate their things to do at the weekend rather than seeing their stepmom or stepdad. You know, they have friends, they might have a boyfriend or girlfriend. So yeah, it's good for me. It's good for me. It's not good for him, obviously, because he's missing out on Summer's childhood. Yeah. But that's his choice. So who am I to say what's good and not good for him?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have all sorts of conversations with stepdads, and you hear these stories about the different dynamics, and some are really good and connected with their dad, some aren't. We talk about living the warrior's way, and we know that there's a much brighter side on the at the other end of putting in the work, and you kind of want to, I'm obviously reaching out my hand to all the stepdads around and opening up this conversation to help them live better lives and be better leaders for their own kids. But it's almost you want to reach out to the other partners as well, just to kind of give them a shake, and it's
what they're missing out on.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I talk to a lot of dads, and it's like the stepdads, and they really do take on that role of being a dad and really immerse themselves in that. And it's interesting to see the other side of the coin, where dads will walk away from a relationship, and they walk away from the kids as well. Hard for me to believe, and I'm sure, sounds like, I was just about to ask, what are your thoughts on being a dad in the relationship, but it sounds like you're loving it.
Oh yeah, couldn't love it anymore, yeah.
You tell me, we kind of, you've obviously been married before, and were kids always in your plan even younger?
100%, yeah. I mean, my first wife, we were together early doors, straight from school. So it was something we always talked about. And in fact, we always wanted a massive family, maybe even more than 4. But as you know, kids are very hard work and quite expensive. And, we got to a stage we'd had 2. And yeah, we were very happy with our lives. We stopped there. But after I've met Josie, it just felt the right thing to do to try for one more. And what we found is Dexter's been a real sort of cement in the family. He's a real focal point for everyone, and he's brought us all closer together, I think, which is something we thought might happen, but yeah, it has happened, and it's been a pleasure to witness.
Yeah, that's kind of, I've heard of that. Like, there's been a few guys on there that had the same sort of thing, same sort of dynamic happen, and it's always brought everyone together. It's that must be magical. I don't have my own biological kids at present, but you never know. One day, I hope we might experience that for myself as well.
Nice.
Tell me, there's obviously been struggles. Every family goes through different things that they have to deal with. What's been, some of the ones that, some of the challenges that you've come up against, or maybe, what's been the big one that stands out for you, and how did you deal with it?
Well, the obvious big one was getting over the death, right? But do you mean more recently?
Just more recently, yeah. Sorry, I didn't. I was just going to say more recently when, in dealing with your stepdaughter. And it could be, just a dynamic between all the kids. It could have, schooling or whatever that might be.
I think there hasn't been a lot of problems, but I suppose one would be the relationship between my eldest son, Oscar, who's nearly 18, and Summer. That was a bit in the early days. I think when Josie and Summer moved in with us, he although, you know, I talked to the kids at length before we made that decision. You know, we talked to all three kids, and they were all, you know, fully supportive. You know, we knew it could be a potential tough time, but it went really well. But yeah, it would be Abby, who's my eldest daughter, who's 15, and Summer have got a brilliant relationship. Spend a lot of time with each other, even though there's the age gap there. You know, of a weekend, if they're not seeing their friends, you know, they'll just chill out, watch a movie, or do some craft stuff or whatever. They get on really well, and that the relationship hasn't really been there between Oscar and Summer. When they moved in, he was sort of awkward teenager phase. So, you know, he didn't really react too well to Summer's, you know, affection, wanting to, you know, hug and kiss everything that moves.
Right.
That didn't go too well, but, you know, sometimes it did come across as, you know, he would be a bit mean towards her and be a bit nasty. So yeah, that was something that we had to have words with. But since he's got older, he's matured a lot. He's gone from a shy teenager to, you know, he got a job when he was 16 in a restaurant. He's dealing with people all the time. He's become a lot more confident and mature. And, you know, the relationship with Summer is improving all the time, you know, and they've both got a massive love of field hockey. So they, you know, we've tried to encourage that by, you know, I'll take them up to the training ground and you know, we'll all play together, and then I'm absolutely rubbish, so I'll just, you know, dip out of the equation and go get a coffee, and they'll carry on, and just sort of not make it too fabricated, but we try and create situations, you know, where that relationship can develop, because you know, we just want every single relationship within the family to be a good and strong one. So yeah, I'd say that's the only little blip that we've encountered.
Yeah, and how about for you? You know, like it's a massive thing to first of all lose your first wife, and then have to deal with, you know, raising two kids just kind of instantly overnight.
Yeah.
And then, you know, meeting someone that, you know, you think, wow, this could be the, you know, best thing since sliced bread. Like, what's been your biggest growth point, kind of thing? What have you had to let go of in all of this happening along the way? Like, what's been your biggest growth point? What's been the biggest learning?
I think initially I felt a lot of guilt because, you know, Julianne had died, and she dedicated her life to the kids. She was just she absolutely loved being a mum. And then, you know, she's gone, and she's going to miss out on the rest of their lives. You know, Abby was 9 and Oscar was 11. So, I instantly feel guilty because I knew from that moment that my relationship would take a massive improvement. It would improve greatly between me, Oscar and Abby, because this tragedy would bring us very tight together. And then I would see them a lot more because, you know, I wouldn't be able to be doing these massive shifts at work because I'd need to be around more. So there's two reasons I feel guilty, seeing them more and seeing their lives. And then furthermore, when I met Josie, and I was like a, you know, love-struck teenager skipping around, you know, literally couldn't take the smile off my face. I could not have been happier. But then, you know, in quiet moments, this just made me feel even more guilty. It just added to the list of awesome things that have happened whilst, you know, poor Julianne's died. So that is something, when you say what's one thing you had to let go, I had to let that go because I always try and think, you know, Julianne loves the kids so much, all she'd want for them is to be happy. And if I can, you know, finish off their childhood, you know, from the foundation that Julianne created, take them from, you know, 9 and 11 through to when they're, you know, 18 and leaving home, try and forge them into, you know, decent human beings who've had a lot of love throughout their life, then she's going to be happy. She'll be happy that I've done that. So, and part of their happiness is seeing me happy. So, you know,
you do have to move on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure, do you talk to the kids about it much, or, is it
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very much, and Josie's very good with that as well. We'll be sat around having a dinner together, and, we're constantly, oh yeah, remember Mummy used to do this, and, we get the photos out and talk about her. There's no, we haven't made it a taboo subject,
Yeah.
But funnily enough, I find myself trying to, it's like getting blood out of a stone sometimes, especially with Oscar, because, you let them know that you want to talk about it, but they don't seem to, well, it doesn't come naturally. They don't talk about it. They never come to me and say, talk about any thoughts they're having about their mum and if they've got having any problems. It's always me checking in with them. But they always seem to be fine. Now, I don't know if they're just, not telling me stuff or keeping stuff from me, but, I'll just always just have to maintain that they've got an open line of communication directly to me, and they can talk about anything, good or bad.
Yeah, I think that's really important, just to relay that from a young age as well. I know myself with the boys, I'm constantly, kind of just reinforcing that, I'm always here. It doesn't matter what you've done, it doesn't matter what it's one of those values that kind of a value that you've got to instill in them, that the door's open. Is there anything, like any other major kind of values that you try to, I guess, shape the kids with? We all kind of have our own way of being and the things that we value, but are you, is there any one or two values that you would recommend to other stepdads, just diving in for the first time? There's obviously guys here that have had kids for a long time. There's guys that are just walking into new relationships today. And is there anything that
one of the big things, I think, just to protect yourself more than anything, is to always be wary of being 100% fair. I used to do this just when I just had two kids, Oscar and Abby, never show any signs of favouritism towards any of them, because, that's just a toxin. So I think this is even more appropriate when you've got stepkids. So if you've got stepkids and natural kids, then you have to be fairer than fair, and you have to ram that message home. You have to market yourself as being fair. Whenever you are being fair, make sure you tag it and make sure you tell a story about when you were fair that day. And so that instills on them that, there's no difference between the stepdaughter or stepson and the natural daughter and the natural son. So that would be one massive thing, and one bit of advice I'll give to any new stepdads.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. It's and like I know myself, I fell into that trap early on with my two little boys, Che and Indy. Che was the younger one, and at 18 months, he used to just come and wrestle me all day long, and he was just a cute little, a baby, and we formed a really close bond early on, and he, to the point where, I still remember him coming up to me one day and saying, "Hey, are you my daddy?" Like he didn't know any different. And, I know, Leonie, my partner, pointed it out a fair few times, saying, "I think you're kind of favouring Che, the younger one." And I didn't mean to be, but it was because we created such a good bond early on, and I really had to actually do the work on myself and understand, I had to kind of ask myself that question and then go about the work to rectify it. It's probably an easy one to fall into if you kind of get along with one better than the other, or one's just a different type of person. Might be more chatty or not chatty, or like you said about Summer. She loves to hug and kiss, and so I think it's a valuable one, mate.
It's difficult not to take the easy option, which is, for you, it'd be, go wrestling the young one. So you just have to sort of step back and try and be a bit more creative and try and even it out, I suppose.
Yeah, and you've got to find that commonality in all the kids, instead of just going to the one that, kind of, that's the easy smile. You never want to, and not that I was causing Indy to cry, but, it was always easy to get a smile. And, it's an interesting one, I guess a lot of people would look at that as probably a little thing, but it's such a big thing, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Mate, I'll wrap this up shortly, but I just wanted to say thanks very much for sharing. Obviously, you've been through the wars and come out on the other side, and obviously it sounds like you have a rosy kind of a future ahead. Is there any last words that you wanted to say, any last tip or anything you'd like to share just before we wrap this up?
All I was going to say was, if there's any of your listeners, would benefit from, speaking with me, if they find themselves in a similar situation that I was, and they just need someone to talk to, then, more than happy for them to reach out. I'd happy to help anyone in any way I can. So that would be it, really. I'm open to assist people if required.
Mate, that's a huge call, and I do appreciate that a lot, mate. I'm sure if someone wants to do that, they can get in touch through the website, and I can put them in touch with you for sure, mate. That's very generous of you. Exton, thanks very much for being on the call. Awesome to chat. Thank you for sharing, and I look forward to catching up in the future, mate.
Beautiful. Lovely, James. Great to speak to you.
Thank you.
Would you like to learn more about how stepdads across the globe are joining forces in raising the next generation of leaders? Then head to www.stepdadsuccess.com and grab all the show notes plus a copy of the brand new tactical guide for creating more happiness, health, wealth, and wisdom as a stepdad. And if you liked the podcast, please share it with other stepdads you know and leave us a review on iTunes. Again, that's www.stepdadsuccess.com for all the show notes and tactical guide. Come and join the new breed of stepdads, the growing group of leaders raising leaders.